One. Welcome again to another installment of the Black Bonnet Live panel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. I am so excited for today's topic as well as today's guest. Like, she's amazing, she's beautiful, she's talented, and her name is Alexis. So Alexis, go ahead, introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, what you do. Go ahead, girl.
Thanks so much, Moyo. Hey, everybody. My name's Alexis. I currently live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm a Spanish and an ESOL teacher in the Philadelphia Public School District. I'm finishing my master's degree at Temple, and I'm really excited for tonight's topic because it's super important to me that we continue to have conversations and start to act on our words. So tonight is not one-off for me. So you can follow me. My social media handle is Alexis_Culp, C-U-L-P, and I look forward to talking with everybody tonight.
Amazing. So next we're going to just introduce the regular folks that y'all know that's part of the show. If you notice, Tate isn't here right now because an emergency came up, so he will not be joining us tonight. But we still got the amazing Chanel and Schwartz. Go ahead, y'all.
What's going on, everybody? I remember me, Schwartzen. Schwartzen Priscille. I have actually a segment of my training dropping tomorrow, so you can follow me on Instagram at Schwartzen.Priscille. Please share it, like it, go comment in it, because next week I'll be doing some training in Richmond, Virginia. So I'm really excited about that, so excited for today as well. Today's topic is very juicy, so let's get to it.
Hey everyone, you guys already know my name is Chanel. I'm just here to obviously have the conversation and get this conversation flowing. You guys can follow me on Instagram, Queen_ChanelP. And yeah, let's get this conversation going.
Boom, you heard the folks. All right, so originally this conversation meant to happen last week, but the devils and the power that be said no internet for me, so we had to move to this week. In last week's episode, we talked about, I brought up the topic about white women and the use of the weaponized tears. And so today, that's what we're going to be talking about. And the first question that we have, we're just going to jump right into it, is why do you think white women weaponize their tears towards women of color? And that question is heavy, but the topic is heavy as well. So who wants to jump in first, wants to give their ideas or anything like that?
I guess the first time I ever heard that was with Jane Elliott. Where you kind of brought, to me, I haven't heard that before. Like I said before, Jane Elliott, and then you retouching it. I heard in college, Jane Elliott was the blue eyes, the brown eyes experiment. If you guys are not familiar, for those who've been, aren't hip to what they got going on today. So when I watched that and heard that, and Moyo bring it up again, I was kind of like, whoa, like. So I'm here to, listen, learn, and just try to take it in. But that was the first time I ever heard that for those who are ignorant on the facts.
For me, I think when it comes to white women and the use of their tears, I feel like it's become like a coping mechanism for them and a safety net for them to avoid this accountability in general. Because when I've seen white women use it on me, I especially saw it the most during this past summer with BLM and I guess the world finally acknowledging racism and the fact that, systematically it has purposefully, worked against people of color. And a lot of these white women, it was like their instant reaction was, wow, how is this happening? I'm not racist. And I'm like, girl, nobody called you a racist. And the next thing you know, they're crying. And I'm just like, I feel like they use their tears against women of color as a way to just run away from accountability because they've been so used to escaping it for so long. Because it's when we think of racism, we think of, I don't know, like the KKK or like a white dude with a beard who has a beer in his hand and it's like, go Trump. Like we think of those kind of people when we think of racism. And I feel like white women, now they're being, called out for not speaking up or just being complacent or being part of the 54% that voted for Trump. And so now they're using their tears as a way to avoid accountability. So That's what I think. That's why I feel like they have just gotten comfortable with weaponizing, you know, their tears. What do you think, Alexis?
Yeah, I definitely think similarly. I've heard of like the concept before, thinking about Jane Elliott, thinking about like myself too. Like, has there been a time where I did something wrong to a person of color, a woman of color specifically? Because I think this conversation is between women. Like, when we're talking about white feminism and weaponizing white tears, white women don't do it towards Black men or men in general. And I think that's something that I didn't recognize until you had brought up like white feminism. So I think, why do we do it? We do it because we're scared. We decide that we don't want to engage in that conversation, like you said, accountability, but it's more of like scared because you've been ignorant. Like BLM this summer, like BLM has been around for years and years and years. We've been talking about this since, I don't know, the start of the movement, 2014, 2015 maybe, but like there hasn't been like white women being like seeing it on social media. So then they're like, oh, that's too scary for me. So I'm just going to cry about it. And I'm just going to say, well, that could be me. But like you said in your video, it's not going to be you. Your people aren't going to be killed in the street. Your people aren't going to be brutalized by the police in these systematic ways. So I think it's like, why do we do it? It's because we've just been ignorant, and that's why we're going to do that reaction of fear. So I actually haven't thought about it from the coping mechanism point, but maybe that's what it is. But I think it just boils down to, we don't want to talk about it, so we're just going to cry about it and hope it goes away.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And a person brought up in the comments, they said that it makes me think about Sharon Osbourne as a recent example. And for those that don't know the incident, it was basically a conversation with Sharon and Cheryl, two hosts of the talk, and they were discussing Piers Morgan's, disgusting words against Meghan Markle's, interview with Oprah. And basically, Sharon's position was defending Piers because she viewed him as that's her friend. And her big stance was, how is he racist for voicing his opinion? And I'm not going to hold you, homegirl attacked Cheryl. By the way, Cheryl is a Black woman. And she fully attacked her. I remember there was a line where she says to Cheryl, she's like, you don't deserve to cry right now. I should be the one crying. And I said, I know you are fucking lying. What are you crying about? What are you crying about? Like, why is the topic of racism a topic for you to want to be like, I should be crying, not you? The Black woman has every right to cry. And it just makes me, I'm not gonna hold you. Sometimes it gets really, 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 really hard sometimes to give white women the benefit of the doubt when I see things like that being done daily. I see conversations like that and rhetoric like that being used. Like, you felt comfortable and bold enough on national TV to say, you shouldn't be crying, I should, because you have gotten so comfortable and so complacent in using your white tears to get your way. It's just like, it's hard. I'm not gonna hold you. Like, it's hard for me as a Black woman to continuously try to look at white people in general as allies. Because before I used to like feel like, oh, you're a woman, you understand at least some form of my struggle. Maybe not race, definitely not race, but like, you understand the struggle of being a woman. But that never seems to be the case, because then y'all come out with dumb shit like this of saying, you shouldn't be crying, I should. And it's like, no, me crying should not be a sense of attack to you. And I think that and that's interesting for me even to say, because it's like, if you're looking at tears as a sense of attack, what does that say about you? What does that say about how long you've been doing this? Chanel, you got something to say?
Yeah, for me, it's that sense of always wanting to play, like you said, the one up, one down, like, having that victim mentality of like, this, first of all, this whole thing wasn't about you, right? And it's about another person's feeling. And just because that's your friend, yes, you're entitled to your opinion. However, if her as a Black woman wants to cry because of it's not just Megan's experience. We experience this as a whole. That's why the Black community is so upset about it. And this is our everyday life. So now you have the nerve to say, I'm not a racist, but you're taking the Black experience. And it's like, no, because I'm upset about it, because my friend's attacked. Now I have to cry. You can't cry. And all these other things. So it's like, it's the same consistent story about, you see it on TV, you see it everywhere, where literally a white woman can cry over everything. But in a TV show where more recent, especially because BLM and all these things are popping up on TV shows. A woman loses her husband or her son or whatever, and they can't cry. You hardly ever see them crying in the shows and all this stuff. But you see the background actors and white people and all this other stuff, or the lawyer, like with their like, oh yes, I'm gonna cry, or having their breakdowns. But the black woman never, you hardly ever does.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that same thing that we were kind of talking about last week, is that we're not allowed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
We're not allowed to express ourselves, and crying, that's forbidden.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to have that. However, in white culture, pretty much it's normalized. It's like, okay, well, you can cry and get out of a parking ticket. That's okay. Just go wipe your tears. We cry and we go reach for a tissue. That's our life.
Mm-hmm.
We're done. Like, and that's the sad reality, and that's the sad truth. And people don't, especially white people, don't want to acknowledge that that's the case. We don't, especially white women, don't have. They're just like, okay, well, we're women, so we're oppressed and all these things. Yeah, but we have our things. We have to carry ourselves, our children, our black men, and you guys as well. Because in all reality, like, if when we do this movement for black women and all this other stuff, and for women's equality and all these things, who is it? It's the black women out there marching too.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't still, even then, while we're there marching, it's the white women who get the rights and they get the respect and all this stuff, and we don't. And it's just it's not right.
Yeah. And it's funny you even bring up, the fight for equality, because when I was doing the research, and even in the episode, I did speak about how the origin of feminism is racist. They completely ignored the struggles of black women. Even though black women were right there fighting with them, they were crying, hey, can you help us? Like, can this also be a part of the march? Can this also be, a part of our issues? And homegirl said, no, I feel like it's just going to take away from the premise of what we're trying to do. And I really want to sit here and ask you, like, how, even people watching, how many times as a woman of color have you heard that? When you're asking, like, hey, I think this can also help our cause. And they're like, no, I just don't think that that's what we're going for. And it's like, so what are you going for? Like,
yeah, that makes me think about, like, when we talk about, like, the pay gap, right, between women and men, the first thing we look at on the chart is, like, if you just look at women and men, like, obviously there's a drastic difference. But then when you look further and you analyze the race demographic behind it, the ethnicity demographic, the women, is not white women that are not getting the equal pay. Like, and that's why, like, when we think about feminism, when we think about the pay wage issues and things like that, like, we don't want to talk about the other women in the group because we're selfish. We want to make sure that our voices are heard first. And, like, I don't know if it's coping. Like, I think it's just that white women in general, they don't want to talk about race. They don't want to talk about why race is important and how their race impacts other people, because, like, I'll live my life and being in schools and being a teacher, my field is predominantly white women. So, like, I know how my race impacts other people, but when you're talking to your colleagues and they're like, well, it doesn't matter if my students are Black or Asian or Middle East or da-da-da, it's like, it does matter. Their ethnicity is important. Their race is important, because that impacts their right to vote, their wage issues and things like that. So if we don't, like you're saying, look at it through race and then gender and then, education and all those other things, like, we're missing the point, because we just want to be ignorant.
That if I had a sound buzzer, I'll give you claps. Dun, 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 dun. Just imagine it.
I want to ask you, Moyo, like, you said, like, it's hard for you, and I guess Chanel, I was kind of hearing this for you, to, like, give white women the benefit of the doubt. Like, I heard that phrase, and I kind of want to, like, I want to know, like, is it because of the way that you have personally been treated by a lot of white women, or is it the way that, like, white women view you and, like, how you feel you're perceived? Because for me, I feel like when I walk into a room, when I walk into this Zoom, like, I know I'm the white woman in the room, right? That was the purpose of this. But so, like, is your perception of me or white women that you talk to that they're always going to try to victimize themselves? They're always going to try to do that. Is that your perception?
I'm so glad you brought that question up, baby girl. Ooh, you on fire tonight. And so, so funny enough, when I first thought of this episode, I knew I needed a white woman, period, because I'm like, this conversation can't just happen between me, Chanel, Schwartzen, and Tate. Like, it happens all the time. We know what we talk about. And I remember I texted them and I was like, okay, y'all, I need a woman who is white, but I don't need someone who will either play victim or who just blindly agree to everything I'm saying, because what we're talking about, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. But I need this person to be bold and honest and not going to hold you. We're like, damn, who can that be? Because don't get me wrong, I go to a predominantly white institution. There are a plethora of women I could have asked. But I knew I couldn't ask them, even women in my department, because it's like, I don't trust you to just say what you're thinking. Even if you feel like, oh my God, it might be wrong, but say it, because that's how conversations are started. That's how we create change. Like if you say something I don't agree with, I could just be like, that was a bit crazy. And let me tell you why it was a bit crazy. Like I would never disrespect you. Thank God for Amber. Because baby girl, she told me you are perfect, and I trusted Amber with my life. And sincerely, it's been great. And for me, it's like the reason I have a hesitancy with white women is because of the way they've treated me. Because I always get the, oh my gosh, Moyo, we love you, da 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 da. But over the summer, even prior to the summer, with issues in my department when it came to race, like my department last year was in a whole protest about race, microaggression, everything under the sun we were in. And I couldn't find that allyship. I'm like, why are you speaking up after the fact? I found a lot of them doing that. They're like, oh my gosh, Moyo, you're so bold for saying your truth and standing up for yourself. And I completely agree. That was racist. Baby girl, why you said that then? What happened to feminism? What happened to Women for All? Why are you waiting until the doors are closed? We've walked outside the room. I'm about to go to my home to cry. Then you want to put me to the side and be like, hey girl, I feel your pain. If you felt my pain, you would have said something. But no, you're quiet. You say something after the fact. So seeing all those things always constantly happen, when I see white women, I'll be like, oh girl, nice, love and like for you. But I will truly base my judgment on your character once I see what you do when issues about race, anything related to things that you can't relate to, how you handle that. Because a lot of times I personally have just witnessed silence. I've witnessed performative activism. I've witnessed the oh my God, we'll be there and we'll support you. Then I text them like, hey, are you guys gonna be there? Oh my God, something came up. Oh my God, I completely forgot. How can you forget something that's meant to be so important? That could basically determine my life and my course in this country. How do you forget that? And why did it have to take seeing a grown black man cry on camera for his mother for you to understand, oh my God, this is real? And then that lasted for about 3 weeks. So that's why for me, when it comes to approaching white women, I got 1 foot out the door, because I just need to defend myself in case at 1 minute y'all want to start crying. And I'm like, all right, time to go. But that's it for me. Chanel, what do you think?
I think I agree. I think maybe it's just most of my experience is with white women or in Ithaca. So for me, it was my experience was like the white girls that I would get close to and things like that. It was like, oh, we're in class. It was kind of fine and dandy when we're in class. Okay, this is wrong. This is right. Obviously, abrupt racist things or whatever. But when it came to the like microaggressions and things like that, I had the same experience. They didn't speak out. Just because you took a picture at a protest with your fist up doesn't make you an ally. It doesn't make you part of like knowing what the struggle and being there for your friends. You didn't check up on me when I went into college. My first semester, it was literally like there was riots. We were on the news and all these other things. None of those white girls checked up on us. None of those white girls, just because you sat at Peggy and you sat there and slept in the room or whatever on the floor, that doesn't make you an ally. Because when it's happening and it's in the classrooms and it's going on right in front of your face, you're not saying anything. When you see the teacher every time they ask a question about a black experience or whatever, and they look at us, at the 2 black people in the room, that's you call them out or raise your hand or do something. No, but they continued and they let these little microaggressions continue to happen. You keep your silence. Silence speaks too. Silence speaks very much volumes. And I think that for me, I allow everyone to kind of say whatever they have to in their piece or whatever. So I'm not gonna, if the white woman decides to, do that or use the tears or whatever, then okay, I see that, whatever. I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But like Moyo, I always have one foot out the door because I don't. It's very few women that I've at least encountered, or white women that I've encountered, that don't use that when it comes to their benefits. It's like, okay, maybe you don't use it in your everyday life, but when it counts and it comes for you to defend the Black woman or step up, it's always the tears. It's like, oh my God, I just can't handle this, and then step away, right? Like you were saying, Alexis, rather than let me step up and use my privilege to defend the people that need defending or that need help. And even if they don't need that defending or that help or that support, let me be there anyway, because that's my job, especially knowing how difficult it is to be in a PWI and be of color. You know, like it's difficult to do that, and seeing those things, it makes people uncomfortable. And you can see how uncomfortable we are when a teacher does those things, and they know it. And so, and for them to just kind of stay quiet and not say anything, it's just like you're a part of it. And I just can't fly with that. I don't know.
Yeah. There's only one thing I want to add to what Chanel just said, and honest to God, for anyone who's watching this that is white, a white male, a white woman, it just comes down to as simple as just humanity. Like that's one thing I feel like people seem to lose sight of. It's just humanity. If and I heard this pisses me off so many times. In my experience, and it mainly is because of the way I'm perceived, in my department, I'm perceived as the strong Black woman. I mean, Chanel can speak on this. She knows half the crap I go through, and it's always, Moyo's gonna be there. Moyo's got it. We can always rely on Moyo. And it's like, cool. I have no issue because I'm the kind of person, like, if I see something that's wrong, I will speak up, even at the detriment of myself. Because I'm just like, that's wrong. Why is that such a hard concept for people that aren't Black to understand? As a kid, you're taught that if you see something that's wrong, that's done, just speak up. If you see a man talking to a woman in a disrespectful way and you don't agree with it, speak up. If it happens in the workplace, speak up. Why is that so hard to do when it just has a race card attached to it? Like, why? It's easy for, I've literally seen where like white women would stand up for me when it's like, another, like I lost something. Like, oh my God, let me help you find it. You really need it. Great, amazing. Now I'm starting to lose my sanity in this department because constantly I am hearing, oh, you're just a Black girl. Oh, da 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 da. Or there's silence when it comes to race. Like literally in my department, a professor who's no longer with us, he told a student, because she put her leg on the table, she's Black, that if you did that in another country, you'll get shot. And not a single white girl said anything. Complete silence. All the Black kids are like, yo, that's wrong, da da da. Class is over. The girls, of course, crying, like, what was that? Like, I don't. And all the white people are like, oh my God, it's so wrong what he said. Girl, why didn't you say that then? Why didn't you tell him that's not okay? But it's frustrating. And after a while, it gets irritating to just see that, like, all we're asking for is just common decency and, I don't know, niceness, humanity. But that's hard to do, and I don't. Like, that's one thing that boggles me. I don't get why that's so hard.
And the thing is that if it was roles reversed, I feel like we'd be expected to go and save them.
Yeah.
And then go do like, oh, well, that's not okay. Let's go save the white girl because she's in a mix of all these Black people. So save the white girl. She doesn't know. But when it's vice versa, we never get that same compassion. And it goes back to seeing like, we're not seen as people.
Yeah.
We're not. Yeah. So we don't deserve that same compassion. And like, we're just not seen as people. So we don't get that same respect or the same courtesy as white women do.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add something to that before we move to another question? No? Okay, great. Okay, so my question is, do you think the use of white female tears is an effect of white male patriarchy society? And I asked that question because I think it was in my sexualities course I took last year. It was one of my classes. And basically they were talking about the fact that, because white males during the era of slavery, which in essence still goes on today. But during that era, white males would depict their white females as innocent, as I mentioned in the episode, as innocent, pure, and angelic. So therefore, they couldn't do certain things to their angelic wives or girlfriends, but they would do it to their slaves. And because of that, again, white female tears are looked as angelic, innocent. They need rescuing. They need saving. Like, white men have depicted their white females as this innocent breed. They look at women in general as that, like, oh, damsels, maybe not black women, but like other women. But I think that because of that depiction of that white women always need rescuing, therefore, as an effect, white women have now used that as like, this is my ticket out of things. This is my ticket to get things. If I cry, I'll be rescued. If I cry, I'll be saved. So do you think that the white female tears are an effect of white male patriarchy?
Well, that was the whole Jane Elliott experience right there. The experiment where, I won't go into detail, but if you Google that exact experiment, it was Jane Elliott was holding, an experiment showing how people of color are treated in this country, and the white girl like bursted out in tears, and she left. She left the classroom. It was about 20 people, 20, I think, young ladies, 20 white girls. She left. One of the white girls left, and then she came back, and Jane Elliott said, "No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to cry, get yourself together, and come back, because people of color don't get that privilege." Mm-hmm. And so that was the whole purpose of the experiment, to show that, you can do that. You can get up and leave and everything, roses and daisies with your little life. But people of color, and I love how she used her position to bring to light a huge issue. And like I said, I didn't really hit home until I watched your podcast on it, your video on it. I'm like, oh, that's what that whole thing really meant. It was like, this is my first time ever hearing about tears being weaponized, and that's exactly what she meant. She cleaned herself, she cried, and she came back, and Jane Elliott said, "No, I'm gonna check you on this. You don't get to do that, because people of color, and especially women of color, don't get to do that in this country." And that was a day, that experiment went viral because it was a day right after Dr. King got assassinated.
Yeah, I definitely think that experiment is such a great example, and it happened at the right time, right? Like, also, like, right after Dr. King got assassinated, everyone started to understand it and hear about it, and kind of white people, not black people, white people started to really see it from their perspective. But I don't know if white women tears are like an effect of the patriarchy, or more of like I don't know. It's not an effect. It's not a product. They were always there. They were always weaponizing their white tears, even when, like, during the slave era, if we want to call it that, like, white people were always marrying white people in that era. It was illegal to do anything else, right? The laws protected the white women to be in that aspect, and to, have that privilege by the law also. And then white men, they're abusing their slaves, they're abusing this and that, and they're having this kind of different relationship with other types of women. But it's not a product, because they were weaponizing their white tears, on the slave farms. Like, they were there, and they were like, oh, like, why are you talking to her? Like, we know that, like, white women weaponize their tears, thinking about Emmett Till, thinking about that era of white women calling, like, black men, like, all of these horrible names, stereotyping them, and saying how scared they are of them. Like, that is their weaponizing too of it. And that is the product of the slave era. But I don't know if that's a product of the patriarchy. Maybe it is, but I think it's more to do with that there were laws in place that supported white women to be that chastity, to be that safe, whatever way that we want to call it, and that pureness. So then when it moved out of those laws where people could marry who they wanted to marry, white women were feeling shame. They don't know how to control their emotions. They don't know how to process their emotions. And then they're going to blame it on the black man. And then that was weaponizing to them. And we still see that today when we see of, like, black men walking in the park and white women calling the police on them. Oh, why is there a black man in my neighborhood? Why is there a black man touching my trash cans? It's your neighbor, right? Like, that's the weaponizing of their tears too, because it's their fear. It's their fear of Black people. And like what you said about just like we white people don't see Black people as humans or seeing the humanity in it. I don't know if it's a byproduct of patriarchy, but it's definitely a byproduct of that internalized privilege of just like, I don't know. I don't know if it's a product, but I definitely think it comes from that idea that we've always been protected by the law, by the white man, by whoever it was. But I don't know if it's from patriarchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say that it is like because of all these laws and all these things that were created were by the white men. So that they were put in place, and the patriarchy is pretty much being controlled by the white men. So it from the beginning, that's what it was, so that the white men could be put in power. Obviously, they're marrying white women, so their white wives are going to be put behind them, and they need to have some sort of status. The white women, obviously, whether they took advantage of it or the white men told them or whatever happened in between, it's still like, that like, oh, you're so pure, you're so this, you're so that, almost childlike, to like, oh my god, the second that you cry, what's going on, are you okay, versus like, what they treat a Black woman, what the fuck you crying for, what is this, you don't need to be crying, step up, get up, let's go do this, do this, like. So for me, I think so, because that's where it stems from, and we can call it patriarchy now. It's just different names. As time goes by, it's just different names for the same exact things. And we're just coming up with different names, different terms to fit here and here and here. But the fact that still stands is that white women for generations and generations have been using their tears in order to get little Black boys killed because there was whistling, or get out of parking tickets, or get out of anything, or whether it's to kill or whip a Black slave that the master was raping and they were jealous, or whatever the case is. White women have been doing it forever, and it stems from that, the white men giving them that privilege to like, you, if you just cry, you can get whatever you want.
Yeah. For me, I honestly think that like, yes and no to that question. The reason I say yes or no is because I feel like if, and this is something I spoke about in a previous episode about this trope about like the strong Black woman and stuff like that. It's that like, going all the way back to when the first colonizer first arrived in Africa, and the way they viewed Black women as these sexual demons, and that, in African society, because at that time we practiced polygamy, we couldn't control our sexual urges, and that in turn, centuries after centuries, sincerely is the origin for why there's so many stereotypes against Black people. It all stems from when the first colonizer, I think it was the 1600s, 700s, thereabout. And from there, because there was that stigma against the Black woman from day one, and then white men, they created the stigma for white women as innocent. I think those two ideas clashed tremendously, and in turn, I feel like that gave the opportunity for white women to weaponize their tears against women of color. Because the truth is, not gonna hold you, and I've witnessed it, white women's tears, they don't have the same effect when they're meant to be used against a white man. They don't. And I've seen at parties, they don't have that same effect. But when it's used against a woman of color, however, get the guards, call the National Guard, call the police, hurry up, we gotta save her. There's that, contrast. So I feel like yes and no, in the sense that like, the only reason white women are able to weaponize their tears is because of the stereotype against women of color since day one. That they are, because in the episode I spoke about how, women of color, we are held to such a high standard that one thing we do is the definition for the whole community. Meanwhile, white women, they don't have that restriction. Rebecca is not going to be the influence for Ashley. It's just not. Whatever Rebecca does doesn't influence what, Ashley's decisions are, or who she is as a person, or what the white community is. But for, let's say, Anita, who is, I don't know, like a Middle Eastern woman, what she does represents the whole female Middle Eastern community, it's like, whoa, she did this, she's that. You know, they're all this. So I feel like this trope against women of color gave opportunity for white women to weaponize their tears against us because society deems us as overly sexual. We're meant to be strong. I mean, hell, because of these stupid stereotypes, black women are dying 5 times more than white women in hospitals because they're deemed as like, oh, you're meant to be strong, so you're fine. Meanwhile, a white woman can cry one time. It's like, oh my God, you're fragile. You're a white woman who's meant to be innocent, so you can't handle pain like a black woman can, which isn't true. But those tropes, again, are the reason for why there's this gateway for white women to cry. And like I said in the episode, I'm at the point where it's like, if a white girl cry, I'm crying too. We both gonna cry together. Come on, you cry, I cry, because I'm tired of it. I don't care what society says. I don't care who created the law. I don't care anymore. If you cry, I cry. I don't care if it's over a broken glass. Oh my God, it broke. Oh my God, it broke. We both crying. I'm over it because it's just like, it's tiring, it's old, but I sadly do believe that like it just comes down to the tropes that were set since day one against different races of women. That is something that we as a generation, we have to change, or at least begin the conversation to change. Anyone want to say anything if I move on to another question? No? Okay. So the last question that we're going to discuss, which I feel like might be a big one, is that why do you think there's such a tension to discuss race within women, white, black, Asian, whatever? Why do you think there's such a tension? Because with white men, I get it, whatever. But with women, a part of me is, confused. And I'm confused because women scientifically are meant to have more compassion. So why is it hard to understand when a person who doesn't have the same skin color as you is explaining how their race is affecting what they go through on a daily basis? Yeah.
I think it's because women perpetuate the same stereotypes. They keep doing the same things, whether it's to another black woman or a black man. Because, for example, like the stereotypical thing of like, well, of the Jezebel character or this or that, whatever. Like, there's a culture in the city where obviously, and the city is a melting pot, New York City specifically, where it's like, okay, well, if a white woman wears these shorts, they showing their behind, all their booty, it's like, oh, it's cute, it's like preppy, it's like whatever. But then you see the black woman doing it, and it's so ghetto. And it'd be the white woman. It comes from the white women that do the same thing. It's like, but your daughter has those same shorts on and even shorter. And then, so it's like they keep doing the same thing of like, we can literally do we talked about this with the pictures of the little white girl wearing the clothes and then the little black girl doing it. And in most of the comments of the little black girl, she's too grown, she's too this, it's the white women. But then they'll go sit here and like all the pictures of all the little white girls with like literally a bra and underwear because they're doing gymnastics or whatever. But a black girl who's fully clothed and has the same pose, the same hairstyle, same everything, it's a problem. It's an issue. She's too grown. Whatever the case is. So it's like most of the time, honestly, like it's the white women like that are sitting here doing these same things and perpetuating these same stereotypes. So we're never gonna get over or be united if that's gonna continue to be the case. Because like you were saying, like the feminist movement, it's not for us. It's not, they're not fighting for us for our rights. They're not fighting for our little girls. When it's to save our children, that's not for our little black girls. That's for little white girls. Because when it's little black girls missing, I think it was it 3 years ago, when it was like 16 black girls missing. Nobody was looking for them.
It's still going on too in ATL.
Nobody's looking for these kids. But when it's a little white girl, you get Amber Alerts all over your phone, bing, 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 every day. But it's a little black girl, maybe you get an Amber Alert the first day. And then where are they? So it's like we don't get the same, like I'm gonna keep repeating it, we don't get the same respect and the same courtesy. And white women just go along with it because why change something that you're benefiting from?
True.
There's no need for them to fix it or to speak up, if you're benefiting from it, it's not affecting you. You can stay in your bubble. You can stay safe and be like, okay, well, because if I speak up and I say something, I might mess it up for myself. And then none of us are going to get anything, or even they might make it equal or whatever. And then the resources are going to end up going to the Black women. So now I have less resources or whatever it is that I can't speak for the white women or what they think, but there's just no like, okay, let me just speak up and instead of perpetuating the stereotypes about Black women, let me keep going. Let me keep talking about the Black women and Black children and things like that.
Yeah, something you just said, Chanel, like really like started to like make sense with me when you said like white women just want to stay in their little bubble, like whatever's like really comfortable for them. I think too, like when I think about like where I grew up, like a really small little town, predominantly white people, I go to Temple, it's still a PWI. Y'all go to Ithaca, it's a PWI. So when white people like get together like that, like it's so easy for us not to speak up, because if we always think, oh, somebody else in the room is going to do it, right? Whether we think it's the Black person who's being like antagonized or oppressed by whoever that person is in charge, like we always just think, oh, somebody else is going to handle it because that's not really my Black friend in the room, or that's not really like my person, my people in the room. So like when I think about it from like my community standpoint, like when I live in a predominantly white community, I don't recognize that the things that are microaggressions to the one or two Black people in my community are microaggressions, because nobody has ever talked about that in my little white community. And that's not an excuse by any means, but I think that's why we don't talk about race. Like we don't talk about race because white people were, you know, Black people were redlined. They weren't allowed to have loans in certain areas. They couldn't move to certain neighborhoods. The white flight, all the white people left the areas that Black people were moving into, just set the effects of segregation. So like, we don't want to talk about race because we haven't been exposed to these races. And it's easy for us to talk about it because we go to PWIs, right? Like, it's like, we know, you know, I try to educate myself on it, but it's like, if I didn't do those things, I would have been in my small little town and this would have never occurred to me. It would have never occurred to me that like white and Black people can't talk about race because I wasn't exposed to enough Black people or other ethnicities to have that conversation. I think white women particularly, like when you kept talking about like the statistic of white women that voted for Trump, like that is a lot of America. So like they're so comfortable in the fact that like, I don't know if it's like mob mentality is what it's called, right? Like when one person does something, everyone else can do it. Like they're just so, we're just okay with that. We as white people, we're just okay with like being the 54% of white women that voted for Trump, because that's a huge fucking number. Like that comfortability that we get is like, we can't break it because of the mob mentality, but it's not an excuse. It's just, these are like the conditioned ways seeing from the effects of segregation. So Chanel, I really like what you just said. Like the bubble is why we don't talk about it, because we're not willing to allow more Black people into our PWIs. We're not willing to have those conversations at PWIs because why would we? We're all white people here. We're 80% white. Why do we need to talk about it? Why do we have to acknowledge the struggles of these people in our community? Because if they're not the majority, then they're not going to rise up, right? Like think about the white feminist movement, like there weren't enough Black women to make it an issue for white women where they felt inconvenience in the white feminist movement. Like we still don't feel that way because it's not an issue for me. I'm going to skip a BLM rally because I got homework to do, because it's still not an issue for me. I don't know enough Black people for it to be an issue for me. And I think that's how a lot of white people feel, like just that bubble. So I don't know, that bubble is really resonating with me. And like, how do we pop the bubble? I don't know. Like, I really don't.
Hashtag
I don't know.
pop the bubble. Hashtag pop the bubble.
I don't know. I just feel like there's something in that, like, Chanel, like you said, the bubble. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Yeah. So I have a question, because so it's like, it's I understand it, but also then when it comes to, it's like, it's not my issue, but then when you see things like rioting or all this other stuff, then somehow it becomes their issue and they have an opinion about
Y'all being Black folks' business way too much for no reason.
Exactly. So it's like when someone's being killed or someone's up being oppressed right in front of you, it's like it's not my issue. But when it's somewhere on TV and it's gone, it's like, okay, now it's my issue and now I have to speak up and now I have an opinion and now this and now I want to say this and post on Facebook and do this and all this other stuff. So to me, it's just a bunch of BS, to be honest, because it's like, yes, you're in your bubble, but then when you see it, it's like, now I have an opinion, now I want to talk about it, now I have this or whatever, but it's not your issue, remember? So then why are you still sitting there? Okay, then it's not your issue. So then let black people handle it the way that they need to. Then it's not your issue. No, this is not the proper way to do it. White people are real quick to be like, oh, this is not the way to handle it. This is not the way to get change. This is not the way to do this. But then what is? Because you have an opinion about it, but you're not doing anything. You're not using your privilege, but you damn well can type on Facebook like, hey, black people, they're savages, they're this, they're that, or whatever. But what are you doing? So if it's not your issue, then shut up. That's just my thing.
She said what she said.
Yeah. I feel like, but then if we're not willing to, as white people, if we're not willing to make it our issue, like, I agree. Like, it's not our business to say how people should riot and how people should feel, because that's gaslighting. And it is what it is. It's gaslighting. But so when we gaslight like an entire community of rioting because of, you know, police brutality in a specific community, like, what would you want us to do in that scenario? Do you want us to just shut up and come riot with you? Do you want us just to leave you alone? Because that's when I see like on the news is like the white people talking about the black people that they're doing something wrong. And then they say, this is how we're supposed to do it. But again, you're right. It's not our issue because we don't experience that challenge. So then what do we do in that scenario? Nothing. Like, because then I feel like that perpetuates it more. Like you're saying, the bystander at a PWI letting the white professor say something to the black student. So I don't know. That's why I'm like confused, because of course it's nobody's business to say how people should and shouldn't act, but is it our business to talk about it at all?
So for me, I think it is to have the conversations with the black people. What are you comfortable with? To have the spaces and create the spaces to have the conversations. And that's what we need to figure out. What is the thing that is going to bring us together? The thing is that if doing that and saying like, oh, well, this is not the right way, this is not the correct way, white people aren't proposing any. We don't know what the correct way is either, but we're tired. So this is why we go to the streets, because this is the only way that we're heard, right? So it's like, have these conversations. Like you're saying, a lot of people, okay, well, I'm just not going to be a part of it. I'm just going to move away. I'm just going to ignore it. And then after, like Moyo was saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You should have said that. Tell the teacher, oh, that's not okay. That's not okay to do these things. Be a part of, if there's a petition, sign it, whatever. There's a lot of little things. Donate to causes, whatever. It obviously doesn't have to involve money. Literally anything. If you're not comfortable being at a protest, because there are people who aren't, then okay, sign a petition. It takes 2 seconds. There are people on their phones 24/7. It takes 2 seconds. There are a lot of little things. You don't have black friends? Okay, you're in a, not you specifically, but a lot of white people, especially, even though it's a PWI, you still see black people on campus. Like you can go and sit there and have a conversation, go to one of the meetings. There's a lot of black organizations. Hey, can I join the meeting? Can we work together? To sit there and have these conversations, you know, and be open, like you that are open to come on this show to have these conversations so that we can get both sides. You know, this right here is already helping. It's taking the step, because now we're hearing the different sides and where the disconnect is happening. But this doesn't happen often. This space does not happen often. So, but this is what we need to do so that we can start to understand and speak about how to move forward and how we can be united and end all the stigma that is happening against black women, about anything about race.
Alexis, girl, you're a godsend. I'm gonna say that. One of the major things that struck out to me was when you said that white people don't feel the need to say anything until they're inconvenienced. And when Chanel brought up the BLM and us breaking shit as we should, that was us inconveniencing white society. That's why they wanted to run their mouth like fucking parrots on social media. That's why you had the Karens up in a fucking storm, in a frenzy.
Shout out to Karen.
Hello, Karen. How you doing, girl? I hope you're watching. You know, like that. And it shouldn't have to come to Black, brown people having to inconvenience you for you to feel the need to speak up. Because, baby, we got time. Also, with our generation, we have plenty of time. We have no issue kicking bombs back to the cops. We got time, baby. We will inconvenience you till kingdom come. Jesus himself comes come save you. But we shouldn't have to do that. And I think that is what ties both of your points so perfectly together is inconveniencing people. It's an inconvenience. That's how I look at Black issues now for, you know, white women or non-Black people, is that they view it as, oh, it's an inconvenience. I don't need to do that. But when it affects that paycheck, that bank, that fast food restaurant that you haven't been to in 3 years, but it's like, oh my God, it's a staple for our family. Now you're inconvenienced because it's burnt down. Because a life was lost. Not even a life. Hundreds and millions of lives are lost. I mean, there's a reason Black folks don't like the sea. We were stolen through it and thrown overboard on it. Jumped, like, there's so much history with Black people in this country, in every country, honestly. And it's like, we shouldn't, no one, even brown people, we shouldn't have to inconvenience each other for there to be justice. We shouldn't have to feel that need, but if we have to do it, we're going to do it. And I want to make that very, 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 very clear. I will continue to use my voice to inconvenience you until you feel the urge and the burn to speak the fuck up or shut the fuck up. Because I personally, I used to be, I won't lie, I did get exhausted trying to fight the Black fight, trying to get white people to be an ally. I got exhausted. That was very exhausting, trying to get, you know, white people to be an ally. Until I realized, you know what, fuck them. I need to be an ally for myself, and I need to just speak up on issues, period. If that is tweeting, reposting, anything I need to do for just my mental sanity, I need to do it. And I want to make it very clear that, like, people who aren't Black that are watching this live, or that will watch the rebroadcast, or whatever it is, or watch it in the future, I want you to understand one thing very, 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 very clearly. Black folks will never beg you anymore to fight, to speak up. We're tired of it. I think last summer made it very clear. We're not going to beg for your allyship anymore. We're just going to sit back and watch what you do while we continue to fight. I admire women and people in general that choose to speak up on their own and choose to just be like, this isn't justice, this isn't fair, let me just do something. If it's donating, like, donations go a very long way. Signing that petition goes a very long way. Even I saw on, you know, TikTok, everywhere else were like, it would just be one little girl, side of the corner, having the damn poster, BLM. That is something, because in that little white bubble of yours, you being that one beacon of light is something. I am tired of white folks saying, well, educate me. Bitch, no. Go to school. Actually, school doesn't do it. Go to Google. We have a phone for a reason. We have technology at our
Go to Black
fingers.
Twitter.
Thank you. Go on Black Twitter, but don't start using the Black hashtags. Don't do that. Don't use the AAVE. Don't do that.
Hashtag white people, white people.
But like,
you'll see Karens all over there.
I'm not that ass though. But like, sincerely though, like, stop expecting Black women, especially, because I have been making this a very huge point of mine, that Black women, stick up for yourself. Stop trying to educate everyone else. Don't expect the Black woman to be the one to educate you. You don't expect the Black male to educate you. Stop expecting Black people to do the job for you, because at the end of the day, y'all created the problem, so y'all gotta fix it. Sorry to tell you, if you're inconvenienced, oh wow, go be a Karen somewhere else. But like, you, like, white folks created the issue. Now don't get mad when the issue's victims have now decided to rise up and speak up and want to inconvenience you back, because we've been inconvenienced for how many years? So you can deal with a couple of more. But that's what I gotta say. Schwartz, you want to add something?
No, I'm good. I'm gonna just, you know, that's good. I'm gonna co-sign on that. Put my name on that. Hashtag Moyo said it.
I'm dead.
Hashtag, yeah.
I just want to say one last thing about, like, that what you were saying about like the phones and things like that. So it's not even like now white people don't know that these issues are here. Before, okay, I could admit it, but everybody has a phone. Everybody has a computer, especially now with Corona. Even your job is giving you access to a computer or phone or something. So within your day, you can take an hour if you really wanted to be an ally or whatever and research about the things that you see in the news, you know, and like, okay, what is this? Why? What does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you can make the connections about why is this racist? Why are Black people being so angry about all the things that are going on in the world? Because all these things are popping up on your TV all the time. They're popping up on your TV shows. They're popping. There's no escaping it.
Mm-hmm.
So even all these, you see these white people watching. I'm on TikTok and I will sit here and sit. All the people like, oh, these shows are getting too political. These shows are whatever. Like because Grey's Anatomy had a monologue about them being tired because she's Black and her being tired
It's
and
always
telling the
political when
sister
it's a Black issue. That's all I'm gonna say.
exactly. So she's like, I'm tired of having to explain things or whatever the case is. And it's like, when you see that and you see that in your show, the same way that you sit there and you Google definitions about what a word means, you can sit there and Google the definition about, okay, what was it that she just said about this movement or whatever the case that, you know, they described there. So I think it's just a bunch of excuses of like everything is literally in your face. And if you don't, at this point, if you are not educated about certain things, that's just on the white people that continue to perpetuate those things. Because it's like, I get it. From Facebook, you might not see a post. Because if you only have your white people in your town, obviously you might not get the same post because it's an algorithm.
Yeah.
But it's because it's popping up everywhere else, you can go and take that time for yourself to go and educate yourself on it before going and like right away, oh my God, it's offensive, whatever. There's like Black people, they're this and that, whatever. But you don't even know why we're angry.
Yeah.
You don't even know where this is coming from. You don't know, and you don't have to know and understand why we're angry, but like have some respect because, and you would have that respect if you knew where it stems from,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just common decency for another human being,
Yeah.
and that's like it just comes down to boil down to respect and recognizing us as humans.
Okay, so we have answered all of the questions at this point. So now we're just gonna round it up. I want to give a huge round of applause, like sound effects, applause to Alexis. Before I do that, to Amber for letting me know about Alexis. Sis, thank you.
That's right. Yeah.
Alexis, sincerely,
Yes, thank you. Right.
I cannot thank
That's right.
you enough for deciding to do this, for being brave enough to do this, because like I said before, I was looking for a woman that would be bold and stand in her beliefs and just be honest. And baby girl, you delivered times 10 and you are you. And I sincerely thank you so much for that, because this conversation is needed. It should happen more often. There should be a space for this on every campus, on every academic field, in every office. It should be happening. So thank you so much. Like, sincerely, it warms my heart that you agreed to do this and that you delivered. Like, you came in with questions, you came in with your opinions, and you did what you did, girl. Thank you so much. And as per usual, I want to thank my panelists, Chanel and Schwartz. Y'all are always chef's kisses.
We try.
Just go ahead and give the people your social media handle so you know they can follow you, keep up with you, baby. Come on.
All right. So on Instagram, you can follow me, Queen_Chanel P. Follow me on Instagram. That's all I use, y'all. I don't be on nothing.
Sure.
You follow me on Instagram at Schwartzen.Priscilla, but y'all know I be on Twitter now. Yeah,
yeah. He's always on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, Schwartzen_828. Hashtag Moyo said it. Hashtag Chanel said it. Hashtag BB on it. Black Series. Let's get it.
Period. Alexis, my love.
Thank you guys so much. I had a lot of like really engaging conversations here. I'm so happy about this. It is literally like it is a privilege for me to talk about my whiteness because every single day white people don't do it. So, you know, I got to do it. I have to be a good role model for my students, my white students, my black students, my brown students. And that's my goal every single day, to come my full authentic self, speak what I got to say, listen to what I got to listen to. And I have a lot to think about. I have a lot to bring to my students this week. They will be seeing this.
Hey.
They're probably going to be shocked, but I'm looking forward to talking about this with them because we've been having some conversations like this. And I think this is one I neglected to talk about my white woman tears and what that looks like for me. So thank you all so much. My social media is Alexis_Culp on Instagram, and you can follow me there.
Yes, amazing. And my name is Moyo. I am the creator and host of this show. And to answer a question that came up, is this going to be posted? Yes, this will be. As soon as this live is ended, it will legit just go right onto YouTube. And my social media handle on Instagram is __DAMMY__, as well as Twitter _unapologeticxo. And that's my media handles. I think that's all of it. Thank you guys so much again for being a part of the show. My panelists, please don't leave once the live ends. I gotta take a picture. But yeah, I will catch you guys again next week when we talk about the black male trauma. So much fun.
Oh,
bye, y'all. Yup, Schwartz, get ready. Get ready.